Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiant Explorer, watching the stars through the wide viewing window. His ship was far from Earth, exploring the empty space near the Kepler 442 system. The crew of 50 scientists and engineers had been out here for 6 months, looking for new planets and studying distant suns. Jake was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been in space for 20 years, but something felt different today. The instruments were picking up strange readings from the edge of the galaxy, signals that should not exist in the empty darkness beyond the stars. Dr. Lisa Cameron hurried onto the bridge, her face excited but worried. She was the ship's expert on alien life, though they had never found any before. Her hands shook as she held a data pad full of numbers and charts. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, her voice tight with fear. "The sensors are detecting massive energy signatures moving toward us from outside our galaxy. These readings are impossible. Nothing we know could generate this much power." Jake took the pad and studied the data. The numbers made no sense. The energy readings were larger than entire star systems. Whatever was creating them had to be enormous beyond imagination. "How many objects are we talking about?" Jake asked. "Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. They're moving in perfect formation, at speeds that should be impossible. Captain, I think we're looking at an alien fleet." The bridge fell silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing and stared at the main screen. For years, humans had wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they might have their answer, and it was terrifying. Jake ordered the ship to move closer, but stay hidden behind a large asteroid. The crew watched in amazement as the objects came into view. They were ships, but unlike anything humans had ever built. Each one was the size of a small moon, dark and twisted like something from a nightmare. Strange lights pulsed along their surfaces, and they moved through space as if the laws of physics meant nothing to them. The alien fleet was headed straight for human space. "Try to count them," Jake ordered. The crew worked frantically, but the numbers kept growing. 1,000 ships, 5,000, 10,000. The alien armada seemed to go on forever, stretching across the darkness like a plague of metal locusts. Then the message came. Every screen on the ship suddenly filled with the same image. A creature that was barely recognizable as living stood before them. It had too many arms, eyes that glowed with cold fire, and skin that looked like living metal. When it spoke, the words came in perfect English, as if it had been studying human language for years. "We are the Vorthic Collective. Your species has been observed and evaluated. You possess nothing of value to us. Your worlds will be harvested. Your people will become part of our war machine. Resistance is pointless. You have 72 of your days to prepare for collection." The message ended, leaving the bridge in shocked silence. Dr. Cameron was the first to speak. "Captain, the transmission came from the lead ship. They've been watching us. They know our language, our culture, everything about us." Jake felt his blood turn cold. "How long have they been out there?" "I don't know, but the signal analysis suggests they've been monitoring our radio broadcasts for decades. They know exactly how to hurt us." The alien fleet began to spread out, different groups heading toward different parts of human space. Jake realized they were not just invading randomly. They had a plan. They knew where every human colony was located. "We have to warn Earth," Jake said. "Get me a secure channel to Admiral Blake's office." As the communications officer worked to establish contact, Jake watched the alien ships disappear into the darkness. Each one was a weapon of destruction beyond human understanding. Earth's entire military could not stop even one of them, and there were thousands. The first reports began coming in from the outer colonies, humanity's most distant settlements. were going silent one by one. The Vorthik were not just invading. They were erasing human civilization from existence, starting with the edges and working their way toward Earth. Jake knew his small research ship could not fight these monsters. But they could carry the warning back to Earth. They could give humanity a chance to prepare, even if that preparation seemed hopeless. "Set course for Earth, maximum speed," he ordered. "And pray we get there before those things do." The defiant explorer turned toward home, racing against an enemy that could destroy worlds. Behind them, the darkness swallowed another human colony, and the Vorthik collective continued their march toward Earth. Unstoppable and merciless. Admiral Roy Blake stood in the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, staring at the holographic display that showed the solar system. Red dots marked where human colonies had gone silent. In just 3 days, 12 outer settlements had stopped transmitting. The Vorthik were moving faster than anyone had predicted. Captain Morrison's ship had arrived at Earth 2 hours ago, and his report was worse than the worst nightmares of Earth's military leaders. The alien fleet was not just large. It was impossible. Each ship could destroy planets, and there were thousands of them heading toward Earth. President Helen Scott entered the command center with her security team. She was a strong woman who had led Earth through many crises, but her face showed the weight of what they were facing. Behind her walked General Pete Adams, the head of Earth's ground forces, and Admiral Karen Hayes, who commanded the space fleet. "How bad is it?" President Scott asked. Admiral Blake pointed to the display. "We have 6 months before the main fleet reaches Earth. Our scouts report that Vorthik ships can break apart planets and turn the pieces into building materials for more ships. They don't just conquer worlds, they consume them completely." General Adams pulled up another screen showing Earth's military strength. "We have 3,000 warships, 50,000 fighters, and defense stations around every major planet. Against any human enemy, we would be unbeatable. Against these aliens, we might as well be throwing rocks." Dr. Lisa Cameron, who had come to Earth with Captain Morrison, stepped forward. She looked tired and frightened, but her voice was steady. "I've been studying the sensor data from our encounter. The Vorthik don't think like us. They share one giant mind that connects all of them. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon is controlled by this collective intelligence. They can't be surprised, because they all know everything at the same time." Admiral Hayes shook her head. "That's impossible. How can millions of creatures share one mind?" "I don't know how, but they do. It makes them perfect at war. They never make mistakes because they learn from every battle instantly. They've been doing this for millions of years, destroying entire galaxies." President Scott sat down heavily in a chair. "What do our scientists say about fighting them?" Dr. Ryan Clark, Earth's top physicist, activated a new display. "We've been studying their technology from the long-range scans. Their weapons don't just destroy matter. They break down the basic forces that hold atoms together. When they fire at something, it simply stops existing. Our shields and armor are useless." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Earth's proudest achievements in science and warfare were toys compared to Vorthik technology. Captain Morrison spoke for the first time since arriving. "There's something else. The transmission we received wasn't just a threat. It was a harvesting. Notice, they're not trying to rule us or steal our resources. They want to turn us into parts for their war machine. Living parts." "What does that mean?" General Adams asked. Dr. Cameron answered. "From what we can tell, they take the brains and nervous systems of conquered species and wire them into their ships and weapons. The consciousness remains alive, but trapped, forced to serve the collective forever. Death would be a mercy compared to what they have planned." Admiral Blake called up a map of human space. We're evacuating the inner colonies and moving everyone to Earth or the deep bunker systems. It won't save many people, but it's all we can do. President Scott stood up, her decision made. We're not giving up. I don't care how powerful they are. Humanity has faced extinction before and survived. We'll find a way. How? Admiral Hayes asked. Our best weapons can't even scratch their hulls. I don't know yet, but we have 6 months to figure it out. Dr. Clark, I want every scientist on Earth working on this problem. General Adams, start training our people for underground warfare. If they take the surface, we'll fight from below. Admiral Blake, I want our fleet ready for a fighting retreat. Make them pay for every mile. As the meeting broke up, Captain Morrison pulled Dr. Cameron aside. There's something I didn't tell them. When that alien spoke to us, I felt something. Like it was looking directly into my mind. But there was something else. For just a moment, it seemed confused, like it couldn't quite understand what it was seeing. Dr. Cameron nodded slowly. I felt it too. Maybe there's something about humans that they don't expect. Something different. Outside the bunker, normal life continued on Earth. People went to work, children played in parks, and families ate dinner together. They didn't know that in 6 months, everything they had ever known might cease to exist. The countdown to humanity's final test had begun. Dr. Lisa Cameron had not slept in 3 days. She sat in her laboratory, surrounded by screens showing radio signals from deep space. Something was hidden in the static, patterns that looked almost like language. After hours of work, she finally found what she was looking for. The signals were not random noise. They were messages, coded and carefully hidden within normal space radiation. Someone had been trying to contact Earth for years, but the messages were so faint and disguised that no one had noticed them before. Lisa ran to find Captain Morrison, who was helping coordinate the evacuation of the outer colonies. She found him in the command center, looking exhausted and worried. Jake, I found something. There are other species out there, survivors of Vorthic attacks. They've been trying to contact us through hidden radio signals. Morrison looked at the data she showed him. Are you sure? This could be a Vorthic trick. No, the signal patterns are too different. The Vorthic think as one mind, but these messages show individual thoughts, different personalities. There are at least 6 different species trying to reach us. Admiral Blake overheard and joined them. If there are survivors, we need to talk to them. They might know how to fight the Vorthic. Lisa worked through the night to decode the messages and send a reply. The answer came faster than expected. Coordinates for a meeting place, a small asteroid in empty space between star systems. The message was simple. Come alone. Trust no one else. We are the last. 3 days later, Captain Morrison piloted a small ship toward the meeting point. With him were General Pete Adams and Dr. Cameron. They had told no one else about the mission in case Vorthic spies were watching. The asteroid looked empty from outside, but their sensors detected a large hollow space inside. As they landed, hidden doors opened in the rock, revealing a secret base built deep within the asteroid. The beings waiting for them were unlike anything humans had ever imagined. The first was tall and thin with blue skin and forearms. It introduced itself as Kethra of the Helian Empire. The second looked like it was made of living crystal, calling itself Zaranai of the Crystalline Worlds. There were 4 others, each from a different species, each a survivor of worlds the Vorthic had destroyed. Welcome, humans, Kethra said in perfect English. We have been watching your species for some time. You are about to face the same horror that destroyed our civilizations. General Adams stepped forward. How many of you are left? A few thousand from each species, Thara and I answered, her crystal body glowing with sadness. We are all that remains of billions. We hide in dark space, moving constantly, afraid to stay in one place too long. An alien that looked like a giant. Insect spoke next. We have watched 17 civilizations fall to the Vorphic. Each time, we hoped the new species would find a way to stop them. Each time, we were disappointed. Captain Morrison felt his heart sink. And there's no hope? No way to win? Kethra made a sound that might have been laughter, but there was no humor in it. The Vorphic are perfect hunters. They learn from every species they conquer, taking the best weapons and tactics and adding them to their collective mind. They become stronger with each victory. But we didn't ask you here to crush your hope, Zaranai said. We asked you here because your species is different. In all our studies of humans, we found something we have never seen before. Dr. Cameron leaned forward. What do you mean? The crystal being's glow brightened. Other species think in patterns. We plan, we organize, we follow logic. The Vorphic Collective can predict this kind of thinking perfectly, but humans think in chaos. Your minds jump from idea to idea in ways that make no sense. You create solutions. That should not work, but do. I don't understand, General Adams said. Kethra explained. When the Vorphic Collective tries to predict human behavior, it fails. Your unpredictability is like a virus in their perfect system. They cannot absorb chaos the way they absorb order. This is why we contacted you, another alien said. Alone, we cannot defeat the Vorphic. But together, using human unpredictability, we might have a chance. The insect-like being activated a holographic display showing star maps. We have hidden fleets, advanced weapons, and knowledge of Vorphic weaknesses. But we need human creativity to make a plan they cannot see coming. Captain Morrison felt hope for the first time since the crisis began. What kind of plan? Something so crazy, so impossible, that even the Vorphic Collective cannot imagine it, Zaranai said. Something only humans could think of. Dr. Cameron smiled for the first time in days. You want us to be unpredictable. More than that, Kethra said. We want you to be impossible. Amy Morrison sat in the secret laboratory beneath the Swiss mountains, staring at blueprints that should not exist. Her father had returned from the alien meeting 3 weeks ago with technology that seemed like magic. Now she was trying to turn that magic into weapons. The young engineer had always been good at solving impossible problems. But this was different. The alien survivors had given humanity designs for something they called chaos drives. These were not normal engines or weapons. They were devices that connected directly to human thoughts and turned random ideas into reality. Dr. Ryan Clark worked beside her, his hair gray from stress and lack of sleep. The theory is insane, he said, looking at the alien mathematics. This drive system doesn't follow any known laws of physics. It creates what it needs to create based on what the pilot is thinking. That's the point, Amy said. The Vorphic Collective can predict logical weapons and logical tactics, but they can't predict something that changes based on random human thoughts. The first prototype sat in the center of the lab, a strange device that seemed to shift and change when no one was looking directly at it. It was built from human technology mixed with alien designs, creating something that belonged to neither species. Captain Jake Morrison entered the lab with General Adams. Both men looked worried. The Vorphic fleet was now only 4 months away, and the outer colonies were completely gone. Earth's evacuations were nearly complete, but there was nowhere to run if the homeworld fell. How's the testing going? Jake asked his daughter. Amy pointed to a simulation chamber where volunteer pilots had been trying to operate the chaos drive. It's harder than we expected. Most pilots can't handle the mental strain. When the drive connects to their minds, they have to think in ways that hurt to think. 3 pilots have already gone insane. Dr. Clark pulled up medical reports on his screen. The human brain isn't designed to create true randomness. We think in patterns, even when we try not to. The few pilots who can operate the drive successfully are people whose minds work differently from everyone else. General Adams frowned. What kind of people? Artists, dreamers, people with certain types of mental conditions that make their thoughts jump around unpredictably. The more chaotic their thinking, the better they can control the drive. Jake looked at the prototype ship they were building around the Chaos Drive. It was small, meant for one pilot, and covered in sensors that would monitor the pilot's brain activity. What can it do? Amy activated a holographic display showing test results. In the simulations, a chaos ship can phase through solid matter by refusing to believe in physical barriers. It can fire weapons that exist in multiple dimensions at once. It can be in two places at the same time if the pilot believes it strongly enough. That's impossible, General Adams said. That's the point, Dr. Clark replied. Impossible is exactly what we need. The Vorthic Collective has conquered 17 galaxies by being perfectly logical. They've never faced weapons that work by being illogical. Through the speakers, Kethra's voice joined the conversation from the hidden alien base. We have been monitoring your progress. Our scientists are amazed by what human minds can achieve when connected to chaos technology. No other species has ever made it work. Jake asked the question everyone was thinking. But will it be enough? Even if we can build a few dozen chaos ships, the Vorthic have thousands of planet-killing vessels. Zaranai's crystal voice answered. Dr. Cameron has made a crucial discovery about the Vorthic Collective. There is a central nexus ship called the Origin Mind. It coordinates all Vorthic forces across multiple galaxies. If we can destroy it, their entire collective will fragment. Amy pulled up new schematics. The Origin Mind exists partially outside normal space and time. Normal weapons can't even reach it, but chaos weapons might be able to find it because they don't follow normal rules. Dr. Clark looked worried. There's a problem. The mental energy required to locate and attack the Origin Mind might be too much for human pilots to survive. We're asking them to think so chaotically that their minds might not be able to handle it. Jake studied the plans. How many pilots do we need? 30 ships minimum, Amy said. But we only have 17 people who can operate the drives without losing their sanity completely. General Adams was quiet for a long moment. Then we need to find more pilots. People who can think in ways that make no sense, who can believe in impossible things. There's something else, Amy said quietly. The chaos drives work best when the pilot is facing certain death. The closer they are to losing everything, the more chaotic their thoughts become, and the more powerful the ship becomes. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. You're talking about a suicide mission. I'm talking about the only chance we have, Amy replied. The pilots who volunteer for this mission need to be willing to sacrifice their minds and their lives to save everyone else. Dr. Clark nodded grimly. We're asking people to go insane. On purpose, to think thoughts that will destroy them, all for a chance to hit a target that might not even exist in our reality. General Adams looked around the room. Then we better find the right kind of crazy people. Because in 4 months, crazy might be the only thing that can save us. The asteroid belt was filled with ships like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before. Human vessels floated alongside alien craft from 6 different species, all united in one desperate mission. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his chaos ship, the Random Strike, watching the massive Vorthic fleet approach Jupiter. The enemy armada was even more terrifying up close. Each Vorthic ship was the size of a city, covered in weapons that could destroy planets. There were so many ships that they blocked out the stars, turning space itself dark with their presence. At the center of the fleet, barely visible through A mass of vessels was their target. The Origin Mind. Amy Morrison checked her instruments in the cockpit of her own chaos ship, the Paradox Runner. She was one of 37 pilots who had volunteered for the mission, knowing that most of them would not survive. The chaos drives were already affecting their minds, making reality seem flexible and strange. "All pilots, this is Admiral Blake," came the voice over the radio. "The conventional fleet will begin the diversionary attack in 60 seconds. Your job is to use the confusion to reach the Origin Mind. Remember, don't think logically. Let your minds go wild." At Jupiter, Admiral Karen Hayes led 2,000 human warships against the Vorthic outer defenses. The battle was hopeless from the start. Human weapons barely scratched the alien hulls, while Vorthic energy beams turned entire ships into empty space. But the attack served its purpose. It drew attention away from the Chaos ships hiding in the asteroid field. Jake activated his Chaos drive and felt his mind connect to the ship's systems. Reality became fluid around him. The laws of physics started to bend as his thoughts grew more and more random. His ship began to move in ways that should have been impossible, sliding between dimensions like a ghost. "Chaos Squadron, advance," he ordered, though his voice sounded strange even to himself. The 37 Chaos ships moved toward the Vorthic fleet, each one behaving differently as their pilots' minds embraced insanity. Some ships flickered, in and out of existence. Others seemed to be flying backward while moving forward. One pilot made her ship turn into pure light for several seconds before returning to solid matter. Dr. Lisa Cameron coordinated the attack from Earth's command center, using her knowledge of Vorthic psychology to predict how the collective would respond to normal tactics. At the same time, she watched in amazement as the Chaos ships did things that made no sense at all. "The Vorthic are confused," she reported. "Their collective mind is trying to process what the Chaos ships are doing, but it can't find patterns to predict. They're experiencing something they've never felt before: uncertainty." Amy's ship phased through 3 Vorthic vessels without being detected. Her Chaos drive was running at maximum power, and her thoughts were becoming more scattered. By the minute, she could see colors that didn't exist and hear sounds from dimensions that weren't there. But she could also see the Origin Mind more clearly than anyone else. The central Vorthic ship was enormous, larger than Earth's moon. It existed partially in normal space and partially in something else entirely. Streams of energy connected it to every other ship in the fleet, carrying the thoughts and commands of the collective consciousness. Jake's squadron fought their way through the inner defenses, their impossible maneuvers allowing them to avoid weapons that should have destroyed them instantly. But the mental strain was enormous. 5 pilots had already lost their minds completely, their ships spinning wildly out of control. "I can see it," Amy broadcast to the other pilots. "The Origin Mind is right ahead. But there's something else. I can hear voices inside it. Millions of voices. All the races the Vorthic have conquered are trapped in there, still alive but enslaved." Dr. Ryan Clark's voice came through from the command center. "Amy, your chaos readings are off the charts. You need to pull back before the drive destroys." "Your mind?" "No," Amy replied, her voice becoming dreamy and distant. "I can feel them, all those enslaved minds. They're calling for help. They've been waiting so long for someone to free them." The Vorthic collective finally began to understand what was happening. The Origin Mind sent out waves of psychic energy, trying to take control of the Chaos ship pilots' minds. But human thoughts were too chaotic to absorb. Instead of being enslaved, the human pilot's randomness began to spread through the collective like a virus. For the first time in millions of years, individual Vorthic began to think independent thoughts. The collective consciousness started to fracture as suppressed personalities from conquered species began to wake up inside the Origin Mind. Jake felt the change as his ship approached the central vessel. Something's happening. The Vorthic ships are slowing down. Their formation is breaking apart. Amy pushed her chaos drive to its absolute limit. Her ship began to exist in multiple dimensions at once, allowing her to see the origin mind from angles that should not exist. She could see the billions of trapped minds inside, all waiting for someone to break their chains. "I'm going in," she announced. "Dad, if this works, tell everyone that humanity's craziness was worth something after all." The Paradox Runner disappeared into the heart of the origin mind, carrying with it the one thing the Vorthok Collective had never encountered. A mind too chaotic to control, too human to understand, and too determined to ever give up. Amy Morrison's ship materialized inside the origin mind, and she gasped at what she saw. The interior was not like any vessel she had ever imagined. Walls stretched in impossible directions, covered with millions of glowing pods. Inside each pod was a living brain, connected by streams of light to a massive central core that pulsed with dark energy. The voices hit her mind like a hurricane. Billions of thoughts from conquered species all crying out at once. She heard the dreams of the blue-skinned Helians, the songs of crystal beings like Zara-Anai's people, and the scientific calculations of races that had died before humans learned to make fire. All of them trapped, all of them aware, all of them suffering. Jake Morrison and the remaining Chaos pilots fought desperately outside the origin mind. Their ships moved through space in patterns that made no sense, confusing the Vorthic defenses. But the mental strain was destroying them. Half the pilots were already unconscious, their minds broken by the impossible thoughts they had to think. "Amy, respond," Jake called over the radio. "What's happening in there?" Inside the origin mind, Amy felt her own thoughts beginning to scatter. The chaos drive was pushing her mind beyond its limits, but she could also feel something else happening. The random patterns of her human thoughts were spreading through the collective consciousness like cracks in glass. Dr. Ryan Clark monitored her vital signs from Earth. "Her brain activity is unlike anything we've ever recorded. She's thinking in ways that shouldn't be possible for human minds." The central core of the origin mind pulsed brighter, and Amy found herself face to face with the consciousness that controlled the Vorthic Collective. It was ancient beyond measure, a mind that had absorbed the knowledge of entire galaxies. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once. "Human creature, your chaotic thoughts cause pain to the collective. You will be absorbed and corrected." Amy laughed, though she wasn't sure why. "You can't absorb chaos. You can't make sense of something that doesn't make sense." Streams of energy shot toward her ship, trying to capture her consciousness and add it to the collective. But each time the energy touched her chaotic thoughts, it recoiled as if burned. Her randomness was like poison to the ordered mind of the collective. Throughout the galaxy, Vorthic ships began to malfunction. The collective consciousness that had controlled them perfectly for millions of years started to break down. Individual. Vorthic began to experience emotions they had never felt before. Fear, confusion, doubt. "The collective is fragmenting," Dr. Lisa Cameron reported from Earth. "Vorthic ships everywhere are stopping their attacks. Some are even fighting each other." Inside the origin mind, the trapped consciousnesses began to stir. Amy's chaotic thoughts were waking them up, reminding them of what it felt like to be individuals instead of parts of a collective. The Helian minds remembered their love of art. The crystal beings recalled their beautiful songs. Ancient races that had been enslaved for eons started to remember who they had been before the Vorthic took them. "We remember," whispered a voice that belonged to a species that had died 1,000,000 years ago. "We remember being free." The origin mind's central core began to crack as billions of individual thoughts fought against the collective consciousness. Amy felt her own mind starting to come apart, but she also felt something wonderful happening. The trapped minds were joining with her chaotic thoughts, creating a storm of individuality that the collective could not contain. "You are destroying everything," the Origin Mind said, its voice now filled with something it had never felt before. "Panic. Order must be maintained. Chaos must be controlled." "No," Amy said, her voice becoming stronger even as her mind scattered. "Chaos is what makes us alive. Order without choice isn't life. It's death." She pushed her chaos drive to its absolute maximum, knowing it would destroy her mind completely. But her sacrifice created a cascade effect. Every imprisoned consciousness in the Origin Mind suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. They all started thinking individual thoughts at the same time. The collective consciousness screamed as it shattered into millions of pieces. The Origin Mind's core exploded in a blast of pure mental energy that traveled faster than light to every Vorthik ship in the galaxy. Jake felt the wave pass through his ship and watched in amazement as the massive Fossif Vorthik fleet simply stopped moving. The ships hung motionless in space as their crews experienced individual thought for the first time in their lives. "Amy," Jake called out, but there was no response from inside the Origin Mind. Dr. Clark's voice came through the radio, filled with grief. "I'm sorry, Captain." Her vital signs just stopped. The chaos drive consumed her mind completely. But even as they mourned Amy's sacrifice, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, Vorthik overseers were collapsing as their connection to the collective was severed. Enslaved populations were rising up against captors who no longer knew how to fight as one mind. The Origin Mind began to tear itself apart as the freed consciousnesses inside finally broke free from their prisons. Streams of light shot out from the massive ship, carrying the liberated minds of countless species back to wherever they belonged. Jake watched through his tears as his daughter's ship emerged from the wreckage, but he knew she was no longer inside it. Amy Morrison had given her mind and her life to free an entire galaxy from slavery. 6 months after the Origin Mind's destruction, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the memorial garden on Earth, looking at the stone that bore his daughter's name. Amy Morrison, hero of the galaxy. The words seemed too small for what she had accomplished, but no language in any known species could truly capture her sacrifice. The galaxy had changed beyond recognition. Without the collective consciousness to guide them, most Vorthik had simply shut down, unable to cope with individual thought after millions of years of shared minds. Those who survived scattered into dark space, broken and confused. The vast empire that had consumed 17 galaxies crumbled in a matter of weeks. Dr. Lisa Cameron approached Jake, carrying a datapad filled with reports from across the galaxy. She looked older now, marked by the stress of coordinating the liberation of thousands of worlds. But there was peace in her eyes that had not been there during the war. "The latest reports from the Outer Rim," she said, handing him the pad. "Another 12 worlds have been freed this week. The former slave populations are setting up their own governments again." Jake scrolled through the reports. Species that had been extinct for centuries were rebuilding their civilizations. The Helians were creating art galleries on their homeworld. The crystal beings were teaching their songs to children who had never heard music before, races that had only existed. As trapped minds in Vorthik ships were learning to live in physical bodies again. "Any word from the Chaos Drive survivors?" Jake asked. Lisa nodded. "Dr. Clark says most of them are recovering. Their minds are slowly returning to normal, though they'll never be quite the same. They can still see things differently than other people. Some say it's a gift." President Helen Scott joined them in the garden. She carried herself with quiet dignity, though the weight of leadership during humanity's darkest hour had aged her considerably. Behind her walked General Pete Adams and Admiral Roy Blake, both men who had helped plan humanity's desperate last stand. "The Galactic Council meeting is tomorrow," President Scott said. "Representatives from 47 species will be there. They're calling it the Free Worlds Alliance." Admiral Blake smiled for the first time in months. It's strange how quickly things have changed. 6 months ago, we were facing extinction. Now we're being asked to lead a galactic government. "We earned that right," General Adams said quietly. "Humanity saved everyone. Amy saved everyone." Dr. Ryan Clark walked up to the group, looking tired but satisfied. In his hands was a small device that looked like a miniature chaos drive. "I've been working on something," he said. "A monument to Amy and all the chaos pilots. It uses the same principles as the chaos drives, but instead of weapons, it creates art. Random, beautiful art that changes based on who's looking at it." He activated the device, and the air above Amy's memorial filled with swirling colors and shapes that seemed to dance with their own life. The patterns were impossible to predict, just like human thoughts, just like the chaos that had saved the galaxy. Jake felt tears on his cheek as he watched the display. She would have loved this. She always said the best solutions were the ones nobody expected. President Scott addressed the group. "The Alliance wants to establish Earth as the capital of the new galactic government. They say humans have proven they can think differently enough to solve problems other species can't even see." "What did you tell them?" Lisa asked. "I told them we'd consider it, but only if the government is built on the principles Amy died for. Individual freedom, creative thinking, and the right to be different. No more collectives, no more forced unity. Every species gets to be themselves." Admiral Blake looked up at the stars, which were no longer dark with Vorthic ships. "The galaxy is free, but freedom comes with responsibility. We have to make sure nothing like the Vorthic collective ever rises again." Jake nodded, still watching the chaotic art display above his daughter's grave. Amy understood something the rest of us are just learning. Chaos isn't the enemy of order. It's the source of life. Without the freedom to think differently, to make mistakes, to be unpredictable, we're just machines. Dr. Clark shut off the device, and the colorful chaos faded away. "The other species are asking us to teach them how to think like humans, how to be more random, more creative. Can we do that?" General Adams asked. Lisa smiled. "We can try. But I think the first lesson we need to teach them is that you can't learn to be chaotic. You just have to accept that some things don't make sense, and that's okay." As the group began to walk back toward the city, Jake took one last look at Amy's memorial. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear children playing, their laughter random and joyful and perfectly human. The galaxy was learning to be free again, one chaotic thought at a time. And in that beautiful, unpredictable confusion, Jake could almost hear his daughter's voice, laughing at the impossible thing humanity had accomplished. They had saved the galaxy not by being stronger or smarter than their enemies, but by being themselves chaotic, unpredictable, wonderfully human. And now the stars belonged to the free.